The classic sit-up has seen better days. Once a staple of most exercise routines and fitness tests, it's become a largely outdated relic. Here to explain is WSJ reporter Rachel Bachman. So Rachel, I'm not going to complain. No more sit-ups. I have no problem with that. But is this sort of like a fashionable fitness trend, or is there some real science behind the demise of the sit-up?
There is real science behind it. The research shows that the compressive force that you put on the spine when you're curling up in that position is damaging, can be damaging, can cause pain and even injury.
So the sit-up is bad for our backs, or at least the way we've been traditionally doing it,
yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So does this mean that fitness tests that the military uses, is all of that changing?
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
3 of the major branches of the U.S. military are considering changes. The Canadian Armed Forces already have ditched the sit-up in favor of a little more functional testing.
Okay, so we know the sit-up is going away, but that problem area is not going away. So what are we supposed to do instead of the sit-up?
That's a great question. There are some modified moves that generally involve a much sort of lower to the floor position. A plank pose is also a good one, especially if you already have a sort of minimal level of fitness.
Yes.
It really activates a lot of the muscles around the core.
Plank is great. So if you do the plank enough, can that totally replace the sit-up? Or
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, the plank pose uses more muscles than the sit-up.
Even better. So
exactly.
What do they recommend? You're supposed to hold the plank for a minute at a time?
You know, it really depends on the person. Okay. There are different plank positions. Some people go down on their forearms. Some people are up on their palms. Depends a little bit on whether you have back problems, things like that. You know, but the general rule of thumb is if you have pain, don't do it. Seek an alternative. But plank is really largely supplanting the sit-up in most realms.
It's so interesting because I certainly have heard about the core in a lot of my exercise classes recently, much more so than just the abs. So is that part of this whole sort of new holistic approach to exercise?
Absolutely. Yeah, people are looking increasingly at how do we actually move? What do we really need to do? And that's why the Canadian Armed Forces, for instance, replaced the sit-up with, among other things, a sandbag lift, where you have to use multiple muscle systems to bend down and squat down, I should say, and lift up a heavy bag, as military personnel are called upon to do frequently.
Right. And the Army is saying that they're sticking with the sit-up. That's what
for the moment, but their fitness test, like a few others, is under review. So we'll see. It takes time for these things to change.
Now, I'm just curious, when you hear the core being referred to, is that's not just your abs, that's sort of the whole middle section of your body.
Yes,
correct?
And it really wraps around to your back as well, because a lot of those muscles work in concert to support your whole body.
And
really.
if you strengthen your core, including your back muscles, that can actually help alleviate back pain.
It can, absolutely, as long as you're not doing exercises that hurt.
Right.
You know,
so good to know. With so
them.
many people having back pain these days, it's so good to know all this. Rachel, thank you so much for that. I will not shed a tear for the sit-up.